these audio syncing issues. So let's get that going. Hopefully TriCaster is behaving. And we'll wait for the stream to come up here. And I'm just going to play this back on my computer to make sure the lip sync is good. And then we'll get started on our little project here. Let's see what happens here. I'm just checking my stream. And then we'll get started on our little project here. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so if the lip syncing is an issue, just let me know. And what we're going to be testing today, and I was thinking about shooting a video. All right, so hang on a second here. So I was thinking about shooting a video, but I have to figure out more about this thing before we do that. So we'll see what happens here. And let me grab the Amazon feed here and hit the live button. So I've only got about an hour tonight, folks, so it's going to be a shorter one. So Dee Johnson and Alexi and Michael and Sina are here. And yeah, what we're going to be looking at today is this universal docking station. Now, in full disclosure, this came in free of charge through the Amazon Vine program. And we've looked at a lot of docks, and normally I wouldn't spend as much time and effort on a dock these days because they're all kind of the same. But this one's interesting because it will work with both USB-C and it will work with Thunderbolt without having to swap out docks. It's the same connector, but it detects what you're connecting. And that, to me, looked interesting, so that is why we're going to check this one out. And I realized in the course of getting this set up, I was looking around the house, I have a bunch of Thunderbolt stuff, and I have a bunch of USB-C Gen 1 laptops we can test with, but I don't have a laptop with a Gen 2 USB-C, so I was unable to find one of those. So it's going to be hard to be comprehensive to see exactly what the Gen 2 performance is. But I found that if the laptop, I'm just setting my phone up here for the Amazon app that I have to run for this stream. What I found is that if the phone or the computer, usually if they're going to put a port that's fast, they're going to put Thunderbolt on it. So I just don't have anything with USB-C or USB Gen 2 for a laptop, but I've got a bunch of Thunderbolt stuff. So we will see, though, how fast the USB ports are on the Thunderbolt device. And if I get enough testing done in the course of this live stream, I'll probably shoot some of the review. So what we're going to do first here is just unbox this and get it all unwrapped. So I just got this in. Again, this came in free of charge through the Amazon Vine program, but I've had no contact with StarTech on this, and no one is giving me any consideration for this, nor is anyone reviewing or approving this before it gets uploaded. So this is the dock itself, and it's confusing because this is labeled as a Thunderbolt port, but if you have a USB-C cable attached to a USB-C device, it will become a USB-C dock. And actually, that makes me wonder, I could probably connect a USB-C cable to my Mac, and it'll probably run as USB-C and not Thunderbolt. We'll try that to make sure we're working here. Now on the front, you've got a Gen 2 USB-A connector. You've got a headphone microphone jack here. The audio on these docks is never very good, so it's not something to get your hopes up about. It's kind of nice to have it, but the sound quality is usually pretty bad. Looks like we got a Kensington lock here. And then on the back, we have gigabit Ethernet, 2 Gen 1 A ports. So these two are slower than this one on the front. And then we have a Gen 2 output, another Gen 2 output, but here's the difference between this dock and others. There's no Thunderbolt daisy chain here on the back. So these are all USB on the back. And you've got your 2 display ports out plus your power. This is a 60-watt power delivery thing, so that's what it's got there. And I knew I would get a question about DeX, and I don't have a DeX phone. I have a Galaxy something or other from a couple of years ago, and I think that one does have DeX, but I have to get the firmware updated on it. it's a long story. So I'm going to test that. If I don't have my own phone, Jake's phone has it. So I may have him come in tomorrow and we'll test that. Lewis was asking about that. But I probably won't be able to test it. I know I won't be able to test it today, but we will come back to that question because I'm curious about that myself. We have D. Johnson, John, Sina, Alexi's here, Lewis, who just asked the question, and Rasmus. Hello, everybody. All right, now this is the Thunderbolt 3 cable. And here's I'm wondering, do they have a USB-C cable in here? They don't. So that's another question, is what do you do because you have to get the right cable, right? Because you got to get a cable with power delivery and alt mode and all that stuff. I do have one, so we'll test that. This is the power adapter, and it delivers power over the cable, so you get 60 watts of power. And then we have a bunch of, 2 power connectors here. One is for, it looks like these are both US, but this is the one we need, is this one here. And that is it. Now I'm curious, let's look at the instructions here. And let's take a look and see what we've got here. So we have the power LED, of course, and they're both 3 hosts. I'm just trying to see how they handle this. And then the other thing to note here, and we'll test this, is that when you've got it in USB-C mode, you only get 30 hertz out the back for the 4K. All right, so USB-C host. To ensure maximum video compatibility, the host computer must support DP alt mode when connecting to the docking station through the Thunderbolt 3 port. Huh. All right, so they're saying to you that you can use the Thunderbolt cable with a non-Thunderbolt device. Now that is curious. Let's see how that works. All right. All right, so we got all that going. So what we're going to do, let me pull out to my other shot here, is I've got a whole bunch of stuff to plug into this dock. So let's get this dock plugged in. It's over here. And let me zoom the camera out a bit so you can see everything. And what we're going to do, let me zoom out so you can see better. I've got a couple of Chromebooks, and I've got a couple of Macs, so I've got a bunch of stuff that we can connect to this. And I'm really curious because I always thought these Thunderbolt cables were very different than USB cables, so we will see. Actually, give you a pretty long one in the box here. We don't usually get cables this long, believe it or not. This is long for a Thunderbolt 3 cable. David Yablonsky is here. No, I just started actually, so we are pretty up to date. You know, it's funny, on the Amazon chat, I'm getting a lot of people asking to return products, and I'm just not, I'm an independent operator here, so I can't help with customer service issues. So I'm on Amazon right now. If you want to watch me on Amazon, you can click on the link there and check that out. All right, so we have a power connector here. And we're going to plug this in. I'm really curious to see if this cable, because this is a Thunderbolt 3 cable. I doubt this is going to work with a USB-C device, but we'll check it out. We'll see. I've got like a fire hazard brewing here too. That was not wise. Let me get this thing plugged in real quick. I got to clean up this office. Problem is I'm so busy. I'm trying to get all this stuff done and out that I am just like moving on to the next thing before I finish the one I'm working on, and that's it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to connect this 4K monitor to the back here, or yeah, to the back of this, so we can at least get the display port out. And it's got 2 display ports, no HDMI. So you could use an adapter to convert DisplayPort to HDMI, and then you should be able to get that to work. All right, so we've got it connected up, and now we're going to connect this part to here. So just a note to Kat, who's chatting on Amazon. This is not where you're going to get customer service, because I do not work for Amazon, so you're going to have to contact customer support directly. All right, so first test. And I just don't see this working, but let's see. We are going to connect this Thunderbolt 3 cable to the side of this device here, which is a Chromebook with USB-C. And supposedly it's going to work. Let's see. All right, so I plugged it in. It's going to be hard for you to see, but All right, that should not have booted up there. Let me close this. Yeah, so I'm not getting any power. Yeah, they totally were wrong about this. There's no way that's going to work, because USB-C cables are different than Thunderbolt cables. So that's the first notch here. Let's try it one more time to see if I'm not crazy. But definitely not getting any charge through that. And it's plugged in, so we should be seeing that, but the laptop's not charging. And actually, what's weird, yeah, it's not working. Okay, so let's try the other side, and just in case that port is not a charging port. I'll plug into the other side here. Yeah, David, no drivers. Typically, these things don't need drivers. Yeah, it's not working. Okay, I didn't think that would work. Thunderbolt cables are not the same as USB-C cables. And what's funny is that in the box they said, oh, just plug it in, it should work. So let me try my MacBook here and see if, just to double check, because the MacBook tends to be a little bit more cooperative with things here. So we're going to plug the MacBook in now, and let's see what we get here. All right, so the MacBook's charging. Well, that's interesting. Huh, all right, that does work. Look at that. So Thunderbolt 3 cable, but the 12-inch MacBook does not have Thunderbolt. So that's intriguing. So now the question is why the Chromebook didn't work, because the Chromebook should have worked, at least with display. All right, that's very interesting. Okay, so that worked there, but the Chromebook does not like it. So I'm going to find, I have another cable here. The one advantage of never cleaning up after myself is that I have plenty of cables. Now this is a USB-C cable with alt mode and power delivery. And this is the trick with this stuff, is that you need the right cable, because if you don't have the right cable, this doesn't work. So let us go back to our other view here, and let's try this cable and see if it works better than the Thunderbolt cable. All right. So let's get this going, and let's plug this in. All right, so now we've got the USB-C cable connected. And it could just be that this Chromebook doesn't like docks, but it's not working with that one. All right, so same result as before. But we've got more stuff, folks. So what else do we have? We have my little Pepper Jobs mini PC, so let's go get that real quick. And we're going to plug that in. Now this thing, we reviewed this before. This is a cool little mini PC because the USB-C port here on the back is full service. So I could take this cable here, and hopefully it doesn't fry it, and I can plug this in. And if I hit the power button here, we should start booting up. Let's see. Look at that. So that works. So it looks like that Chromebook didn't like it. So now, because we know one Chromebook doesn't like it, let's try another Chromebook. Let's see what happens with that. But let's let this boot up real quick here. Now I have another Chromebook upstairs, which I can go get. Isn't this cool though? You could take like this PC, just plug it in, and now you've got all this stuff out there. All right, so that booted up. We're getting power and video. So that's good. And I got a couple of questions here. So got some questions. Any way you can do a Plex video on how to use Google Home to play videos on NVIDIA Shield? You know, it's funny, I haven't done that yet. I know I did the Amazon A word, but I don't think we did Google Home. And that might be a good one to do because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do for my Plex video. So maybe I'll do that one this month. That might be kind of fun. Especially because it's built into the Shield. So that could be a neat thing. We'll try that and see if it works. Let's see what else we got here. So we have So Repair Guy is from Copenhagen and Denmark. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And by the way, the Plex suggestion came from Jorge8752000. Alexei is joining us, I believe, from the Ukraine, I think he said. And who else we got? Rasmus is from Denmark. I'm sorry, I'm just catching up on my chats here. So David Yablonsky was asking whether or not this is a graphics dock. No, this is just a regular dock. But what's unique about this one is that it supports USB-C and Thunderbolt. So right now we've got this Pepper Jobs PC connected. And what I need to do is get a keyboard plugged into it. Even though I have a keyboard in front of me, that's not the right one. So let me go get a keyboard real quick, and let's try that out. It's over there. Okay. Was it over there? Yes. And what I want to see is what I can get the resolution cranked up to on the display. Because what they're saying in the documentation is that this supports 4K, but only at 30. And the reason that is because of the bandwidth limitations of the USB-C cable. I'm just really intrigued, though, that this Thunderbolt cable is working on both USB-C devices and Thunderbolt devices. Now, the dock is designed to auto-switch between both. And the other question will be whether or not we can trick it by using a USB-C cable with a Thunderbolt device to force, because what I want to do is test the bandwidth of the ports on here. So that's part of what we're going to be looking at. And let me connect up my keyboard here. So I've got a little Logitech keyboard. And let's see here, what's going on with my monitor. My battery dead on this thing? No, it shouldn't be. This might be the wrong transmitter. Or it's not plugged in correctly. Let's see, maybe I gotta wake the computer. Actually, you know what, the computer went to sleep. That's what happens. So let's wake the computer up. Where's the power button? And then I think if I plug the keyboard into the dock, that should wake up the computer here. And my house is chaos right now because I've got there's a bunch of kids over. It's after school, of course. And these guys are out back improving my drainage. We're doing the gutters over on the house, and there's a whole big drainage procedure and getting everything going there. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to plug the keyboard into the back of this thing and see if I can get it back up. It's weird that keyboard didn't pick up on the... Could be that I have the wrong transmitter, too. That could be part of it. Plug a different keyboard in. Gosh, this is such a mess here. I've got stuff all over the place, including things that I was looking for that I've now found that were missing. Let's take this mouse and plug it in and see what we get here. Trying to see if this is going to come back up here if I click on the button. Huh, that's weird. Well, it was working a second ago. So this is how it happens. Whenever you guys and gals are watching, stuff stops working. So I'm going to reboot the computer and see if that gives us a little better success. So I'm going to pop this out. I'm going to put this in the dock USB for my keyboard. And we're going to just pull the plug on this thing. So what we're doing, in case you're tuning in late, is we have this dock that came in. And this is from a company called StarTech. We got this free of charge through the Amazon Vine program. No one's paying, by the way, none of these companies are paying for this review here. We're just kind of evaluating this independently. And so what we're going to do is plug this cable into our mini computer here. And what's unique about this dock is that it works with Thunderbolt and with USB-C. So you can have a single dock on a desk, and no matter what gets plugged into it, it's going to work. So far, it does not work with the Chromebook we tried using a second ago. It did work with this computer for a brief period of time, and now it doesn't seem to be working right now. So that's an issue. Let's see if it comes back up here. Yeah, the computer light completely shut down. Let's see. So this computer actually supports USB power, so you can have a single cable going in here. So let's let this boot up here. Huh. Well, that was work. You all saw that boot up a second ago, and now it doesn't seem to want to boot up now. Huh. So what we'll do now, oh, there it goes. Okay. And now the keyboard's working too. All right, so let me get into my computer here. And what I want to check first, I'm going to check a couple things first here, is I want to check how the behavior of USB Type-C works. And I can tell already that this is running at 30 hertz and not 60. But that's what they said. They didn't advertise this as working at some other resolution. So let's go in here. And what I want to check first is the display output. And the other thing I'm going to do is find my Ethernet cable that I have running from the wall. And we're going to run a quick iPerf test on this thing too. Because one of the other things that I look for is whether or not all the devices behave the way I expect them to. All right, so I'm going to go and look at, oops, say yes. Let's go look at display settings. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Display settings. All right, let's see what we get here. So we are outputting display settings here. Let's get that up there. Okay. And I need to go to advanced display settings, because we are at 2160, but we are outputting at 29 hertz. Now this computer I know can do 60 hertz, but there's limited bandwidth on a USB-C cable. And I don't know what kind of magic this thing is doing, but this is a Thunderbolt cable that's working as a USB-C cable right now. I always thought they were different, but it seems to be working. So now I want to go out and grab iPerf for Windows. And if you haven't used iPerf before, it is a network bandwidth tester. And I like to run it just to see that the USB port is getting the full gigabit, or the Ethernet port's doing the full gigabit. Because what I have found in the past with these things is that they don't always function the way you expect them to. And I've seen some weird behavior, like when you plug in a display, suddenly the Ethernet's running slower, that kind of stuff. So we're going to let that run here. I'm going to go and grab that and unzip it. And then we're going to run our little iPerf test. You probably can't see what I'm doing right now because it's so small, but I will explain to you what's going on here. And we're just going to rename this folder iPerf. But the cool thing is that this mini PC is connected with just this cable. So this cable is powering the mini PC, and it's doing the USB in and out for the keyboard and all the peripherals, and it is doing the network just through the dock. The dock is right here. Now this dock is going to work with a Thunderbolt device we're going to plug in a minute too, and it will perform faster and better with the Thunderbolt dock because it's got more bandwidth. All right, so let's go to downloads. And then I've got to look up, oh, I didn't rename, I thought I renamed the folder. It's got two folders. Let's put this in the downloads folder. And it's got to look up the IP address of my iMac, which is running with, all right, there we go. And I haven't used iPerf in a while either, so it's been a while. All right, so let me go and I just got to look up my iMac's IP address on the network. By the way, I'm going to be doing a video soon about my new network setup. I'm using the Here, I'll show you what this screen looks like here. I'm using the new Dream Machine from Unify, and I finally have been able to get all of my IoT devices isolated on the network, which has been great. All right, so my IMAX IP is 191. So we're going to say 192.168.2.191. And what I'm looking for here is yeah, we're doing fine. So let me zoom in here. I'll show you what I'm doing. So we are getting gigabit Ethernet speeds to the iMac, which is what we want. So, oops, I'll run this again so you can see what it looks like. So this is telling us that we're transmitting data at 948 megabits per second, which tells me that even though we're connected over USB-C, even though we've got a 4K display running at 30 hertz, there's enough bandwidth to let that run at full speed. And I should add that this particular computer is a USB-C Gen 1. So it only has 5 gigabits of bandwidth to use to begin with. So that's good that we're able to get all that working there. So that's encouraging. Okay, so that's good. And I'm going to make some notes. And actually, what I should have done was recorded what I just did there, because that would have been useful. So let me do that real quick. Give me 1 second here. So D. Johnson's having some problems with his, so he filled up his hard drive already. I'm assuming he filled it up with media. So the best thing you can do is just copy, if you're using an external hard drive, copy it to a new hard drive and then just repoint your library at the new drive, and it'll discontinue that way. You might want to, yeah, I would just do that. I would just repoint the library, unless you're trying to keep your metadata. Yeah, I think you should be able to just point the library at the new drive, and I think it should maintain everything. All right. So now that we got that going, I'm just going to start a Google Doc here for my notes. And again, what's unique about this dock is that it works, and it's hard to see right now, it works with both Thunderbolt 3 and USB-C. So what we'll do in a second here is we'll connect my Mac up, which has a Thunderbolt port on it, and it'll work with that too. So we're going to call this StarTech USB-C/Thunderbolt dock. And we're going to do a quick recording of some B-roll footage just to show what's going on here. So I'm going to zoom back in on that portion of the screen here. And I'm going to collect a couple of pieces of footage here. One is going to be the iPerf test running. And we're going to also run that real quick. All right, so let's do this real quick. Oh, okay, no, it's still going. Okay. And I forgot to hit the record button, so let me try this again. It's 60 hertz by 60 watts of power, by the way, coming out the back of that. All right, and let's hit the record button, and we'll run this B-roll of the iPerf test. That's nice and solid. That's what you hope to see. This is out the Ethernet out the back. So remember here, folks, we've got a single cable plugged into this mini PC. That's all it's got going in. Yet it is able to get display out, power in, Ethernet going, so all the data stuff is working. The keyboard that we're using to control it is connected to the dock right now. So all good so far. All right, so I'm just going to add that B-roll shot to my list here. Give me 1 second, folks. right. Let me go back over to my Amazon Livestream thing here. Maybe 1 second, folks. All right. So I'm just going to write down a note here. And we'll get that going. Rename 20 B-roll doc. B-roll iPerf USB-C. Okay. And I also want to capture some B-roll. Oh, I just renamed the wrong file. Hang on, folks. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, so next thing I want to just do real quick for the B-roll is get the display settings up. Now here's what's interesting is that, I'll put this right over here, and let's do a quick B-roll shot of this. So you can see that we're only at 29 hertz right now because of the fact that the dock it just doesn't have enough bandwidth on that wire to do all the USB stuff and the video. So that's why you have that. And let me go back, see if you all are asking any questions. Okay, so we're just going to save that real quick. Now I'll show you something interesting here. 31 dock B-roll video output USB-C max hertz. Okay, I'm just recording some B-roll for the review. So now what I have in my bag of tricks back here is a USB-C connector that I can plug into the laptop. And actually, I can show you on my overhead view. All right, so what I'm going to do instead here, I'm going to pull the, oh, see if I pull this out, it's going to die. This may not be the best thing to show you at the moment. Actually, I do have a mini display port there. So let's see if I have my mini display port adapter handy. Because this machine is capable of doing, you can just take my word for it. This machine is capable of doing 60 hertz out the back, which we tested in the full review. So I won't be able to show you this because it's going to create an issue. So, all right, let me shut this down real quick. And when we shut it down, I'm going to then plug in the MacBook Pro. And we should see on the MacBook Pro that this will be running at 60 hertz. At least I hope it will. Hikuru-san, it will do 1080p 60. We probably should have tried that. Let's do that real quick before I switch over. So let's reboot. That's a good point. So we'll just double check and make sure that they can do that. So what they're saying on the product page, if I go back to it real quick, on the product page, they're saying that this is I'm just looking this up here real quick. So on the product page, they are telling me, hang on, let's get back into the computer real quick. All right, so your choices are dual 1080p 60 or single 30 hertz. And I just don't have room for a second monitor up on the screen here at the moment. But let's go over to, here, I'll pull this up real quick. We'll go to our display settings. And we'll turn this down from 4K to 1080p and make sure we can get 60 out of this. So let's do 1080p, 1920 by 1080. And we're going to keep these settings. And what I'll also do here, if we go down to advanced display settings, why is it still at, that's weird, it just like rescaled, it didn't actually change the resolution. Hang on. All right, let me go back out and back in here. I should have the Intel thing. I guess the Intel drivers are not giving me that thing. Advanced display settings. Huh. Very odd. Let's see if we can jump into those display adapter properties for display. There it goes. Okay. And let's see, list all modes. Okay, so it is, that's weird. So might be a little Windows bug going on there. So let me turn up the refresh rate to 60. And again, we are at 1080p. And we'll keep changes. And hit OK. Yeah, now we're back. So here's the, yep, so 60 at 1080 is fine. So if you're just running 1080p displays, no issue with USB-C. That should be fine. And I have all these windows up because I clicked it like 1,200 times. OK, so I'm going to close these out. And the next step is we're going to plug the Mac in. And we're going to see what the Mac can do. So let me zoom back out here. And let's get you a better view of the desk. And we'll reposition the camera a little bit here. Now remember, the keyboard and the Ethernet and everything, all that stuff is plugged in to the dock. So we're going to take this single cable here, and my Mac is just on the bottom of this stack of laptops. And I'm just going to connect that Thunderbolt cable to one of the 4 ports on my MacBook Pro. And hopefully, now the Mac has not reported that it's getting a charge yet. So let me move some of this stuff around here. And flip open the screen here. Maybe it's, there we go. Okay, so we are up and running here. And I'm going to check. So I'm getting power. Now this is a 60-watt power delivery device. So that's what we got here. All right, so a couple other people who joined us. David Parker is here. Nathan Sales is here from Brazil. Dimitri is here. Feral Sparky is here. Yeah, the stream is going pretty well. We're testing out a dock. So if everyone's just tuning in, this dock works with USB-C or Thunderbolt. And you don't have to, there's not one or the other, it's both. So that is pretty cool. I'm going to take a look at my display settings now and see if we've got, it feels like it's running at 60, no question. So let me go to displays here just to confirm it. And let's go and, I think I can have to hit the option key or something on this to get. So one problem with the Mac is that you never know what you're, I can tell you that if it's running at 60 hertz because it's much, it feels much smoother. And there was a way that you can get into a mode, and I forgot what the command was. Let's hold down the, here, switch res X. Let's take a look here. All right, there we go. So I've got this little app here called Switch Res X, and it will tell me, I think. It doesn't. So the other problem I have is that the monitor that I have, unfortunately, doesn't tell me what the display resolution is. So there was a way, and I forgot, there it is, okay. Oh, so we go 340 by 2160. Yeah, it's just scaling it to a different, so on the Mac it does what Windows does, is it'll scale the 4K to something lower, but it's definitely in 4K mode. I just forgot how it works. Yeah, where is that setting? Let me do a little Google search real quick. You can click the Apple logo in the top left corner. That's the Mac system report. Okay. Oh, all right. So let's go over to the system report. And that will tell us, it says. So let's go about this Mac. And let me go over to system report, and we'll take a look at the display. And we should get an idea. It's just so hard to figure out what it's running at. I just want to make sure that it's 4K 60. I'm sure it is. It feels like it. It looks like it. But it's always good to double check. All right, graphics. Okay, yep, here we go. So I'm going to show you the screen here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And this will tell you what mode that the display is currently operating in. So it is using the laptop's discrete GPU, and we're getting 2160 at 60 hertz. Now, the reason why it says UI looks like 1080p is because we're scaling the display here. So it's basically it's doing the Retina thing that Apple's do, and actually Windows does this too. You have your scaling settings so that things don't look too small. Because I could just set it to its native thing here, and you can see how tiny everything gets. So it really, I mean, you can fit a lot on screen, but it's super tiny. It's very hard to read. The text gets really small. And what's cool is when you scale the display, and I think Apple does this a little better than Windows does at the moment, because when you scale it, text gets super crisp. You know, this is that Retina thing that they always talk about on their own displays. Well, if you have a 4K display, you get Retina also. And the text looks better, photos look better. It's good stuff. And again, Windows does this too. So that's good. So now what I want to test, because we tested it on the other device, is we're going to test the Wi-Fi, or the Ethernet. So we're going to run our Wi-Fi perf on here. And let me get that over to the other window so you can see what that looks like. So there's a great utility for the Mac called Wi-Fi perf. And this is what it looks like. And this is essentially the same thing we were just running in the command line before. But this is a graphical approach to it. And it looks really, really nice. And I forgot the IP of that computer. It's 191. OK, so let's go to 2.191. I recently redid my network locally. I'm going to tell you all about it soon. And we're going to run this iPerf real quick. And let me get the window adjusted so you can see the speed. That's the amount of transfer. Well, that's interesting. Well, that's odd. So, you know what? I think it's because it didn't detect the Ethernet. It's running on Wi-Fi. See, it's giving us Wi-Fi here. So, I need to make sure that my... well, there you go. There's a problem. So it did not detect the Ethernet on here. It's plugged in. Let me see if it grabs it now. So I got pretty good Wi-Fi down here, but not as good as Ethernet is. Yeah, so I wonder, they said there's no drivers necessary, but I found on some of the StarTech stuff that sometimes they need a driver on the Mac. So let's go to their driver page. And the way I would approach StarTech as a company is they are like Radio Shack. If you go on Amazon and just type them in, you will see a bazillion things here. So this is their TB3 Dock DP. TB3 Dock DP. And there's no products that meet that criteria. So for whatever reason, let's see, let me go to find their drivers. Ethernet does not like the Mac. I may just unplug it and plug it back in again and see if that changes anything. So let's do that real quick. And we'll plug it back in. So the Ethernet did work on Windows without a driver, but on the Mac, it seems like it's not as happy. So let's see what happens here. And now it'll recognize the display. There we go. And yeah, the Ethernet's still, oh, there it goes. Now it's got it. Okay, so we're going to run this test again. Now, I also want to show you something here, too, because on the Mac, you can set a priority for what one network device gets over the other. So here you can see that the USB, and even though this is a Thunderbolt dock, it's a USB bus. So what we've got here is the Thunderbolt dock taking precedence over the Wi-Fi. So if we go over to the test here again and run it, you're going to see this bandwidth increase because now we're routing over the Ethernet versus the Wi-Fi. So let's hit run test again. And this should do a lot better now. Yeah, so now we're getting similar to what we had on the other one. So Ethernet works. So it looks like we had to just do a power cycle. Now, one thing to note on the power delivery here. So we've got single cable to charge. So everything that's coming through this device right now, let me show you my overhead view. It's all going through this cable right here, this one right here. And the power delivery is only 60 watts. Now the MacBook Pro 15, which is the one I have, and the 16, I believe they use an 84 or 85 watt power supply. So what that means is that typically it's not going to be a problem at all. But it's possible that if you are really stressing the computer out, the battery might not charge, or it might draw a little power out of the battery. And if you've got a bigger Windows computer, so like my gaming laptop, it's probably going to be a non-starter with this dock, because that laptop's got like a 240 watt power supply. So that's not as conceivable here. But the good news is that we've got 60 hertz to the display here. The Ethernet's working properly. Now, the next thing I want to check is what kind of performance impact we get from the dock insofar as the USB speeds are concerned. And our next thing we're going to talk about is this Samsung drive. Now, I want to show you, we're going to do a couple of tests here. I'm going to first plug the drive. Let me see if I can zoom out my camera here a little bit on the top. See this mess I've got here, everybody? So I'm going to first plug this drive into the Mac on its own. And we're going to run the Blackmagic disk speed test real quick. And what that's going to show us is how fast this drive runs, just connected directly. So we're going to go over here. And what I'm going to do here is just connect it to the drive. Now this drive is, what I like about this new Samsung drive, we reviewed this just the other day on the channel. What I like about this new Samsung drive is that it's very consistent in its performance. So it doesn't get slower the longer it's running, at least insofar as how long we'll be running this test for. So it's going to be pretty consistent in that performance. All right, so I've got it selected here. Now keep an eye on what we get for data rate here. So you can see we're running at about 800 megabytes per second, give or take, on writes. And it gets a little flaky when it first starts up, but it'll smooth out here. All right, so we've got a couple of questions here. Earl has a custom PC with a motherboard that has a Thunderbolt 3 port. How do I enable alternate display mode on it? So I have a feeling you better check. I would check and make sure that that PC really does have Thunderbolt 3, because you could have a USB-C port that doesn't support those modes. The port is the same, but the capabilities are different. So I would check that. Clint C wants to know what kind of processor the dock has. So this is not a graphics dock. It is strictly a port dock. But what I am fascinated with here is the fact that it runs with both USB-C and Thunderbolt. So it works with anything you plug it into if it's got that port. It'll just perform differently. All right, but I just want you all to see this. We're getting about 800 megabytes per second writes, about 900 or so on reads. And that's with the drive connected directly to the computer. So now what we're going to do is we're going to eject the drive. and I'm going to connect it now to the dock, because in the back of the dock, we'll go up to our overhead view here. On the back of the dock, it has a 10 gigabit per second Gen 2 port. And what I want to see here is whether or not there's a performance hit going through the dock and using its Gen 2 controller. I found on every dock I've tested, there's a performance hit. Not significant, but it's there. So let's jump back here. Now we've got the drive on the dock. It is mounted. And I'm going to start the test again. And look at that. So we're seeing a reduction in performance. And the big thing will be on the reads here. Remember, 900 on reads before. And we're down to, we're losing about 70 megabytes per second connected through the dock. So there's a performance hit. It's interesting, the writes are taking a bigger hit than the reads. And that's with really only video going out of the display port right now. And this is all USB controller bottleneck. This is not, this has got nothing to do with the Thunderbolt. All right, good. So I'm going to just put that in there real quick. I just recorded some B-roll. And this is not inconsistent with other Thunderbolt docks that I've looked at. All right, I'm just going to log my clip here. Nathan Martin is here. Viral Sparky is talking about the 1440p. He's got some issues with scaling. Viral, are you on a Mac or Windows? Okay. Yeah, scaling can get weird, you know? Like on Windows, usually you should be able to turn it down. I've never seen it not let me do that. Bear with me for 1 second, folks. I just want to log this clip. So we're looking at a bit of a performance hit on the USB connector. It's still faster, by the way, than a regular USB Gen 1, but there's a hit. You saw the difference. It was like 800 megs on write versus 686. And this is 32 dock T-Bolt B-roll USB drive test. All right. Trying to get some B-roll. I was going to shoot the video, but I don't have enough yet to shoot yet. So I'm going to keep doing a couple more tests here. I'm going to keep updating my Google Doc on my other window here. Lon.Dog is here. And bear with me, folks. I just got to find my Google Doc. Where did I put it? Oh, it's on my other computer. Okay, it's on this one. So we're going to just mention that write speeds on USB Gen 2. We are 686 versus 800 on writes. And it was like 830 versus 900 on reads. Okay. All right, so that settles that question. So now what I want to try, I just want to make sure I got nothing that has to be, yeah, I got to dismount the drive here. The next thing I want to try here is plugging in, I'm going to try to trick this thing into thinking that it's got a USB host connected, because one of the issues I've been struggling with in testing this dock is that I don't have a Gen 2 USB device to plug into. Now what they give you in the box is a Thunderbolt 3 cable, which oddly enough works with both the USB devices, and I never thought these cables were USB-C compatible. So it's possible that it's actually internally remapping pins or something to get it all working. I have no idea. So I just want to, I hope this doesn't fry things. I'm going to connect this. This is a leap of faith, everybody. This is a USB-C power delivery cable, which does data, power delivery, and video. And I'm going to connect it to the dock and see what happens. And hopefully everything's in spec here. And when I connect this, what should happen is that the display should start running at 30 hertz. Now the Mac is getting power, and it looks like the display's coming up now. And this display should now be running at 30 hertz. And I'll know just because I can, yeah, definitely 30 hertz. So it's got a little, you can see how it's just not, it's hard to see on your stream, but it's not smooth. So it's definitely running at the lower resolution. And we can actually double check that by going back to the About This Mac thing we did before. And we'll go back to our system report here, and we'll go over to graphics and displays. Yep. Okay, so now, yep, so, oh, see, oddly, it is running at 60 hertz. At least it says it is. I don't think it's running at 60 hertz. It feels like 30 to me. All right, so I'm going to try. I could have sworn there was a way on the Mac to force it into a. I've done this before too. Let me see if I can force Mac to 30 hertz. Let me see if I can figure this out real quick. Okay. See, it's supposed to tell me that. Let me go back into the system preferences and see if I can figure this out. Because this shouldn't be running at 60 hertz. I'm pretty sure this is 30, but again, I'm just looking at it with my eyes here and not getting a good sense as to exactly what we're running here. See, I think the older versions of OS X would give you the refresh rate. I'm going to go back to that app I had and see if I can force it to. So I have this Switch Res X. And this, I'll put this over here so you can see it. It's very small right now. Current resolutions. Okay, so yeah, it's actually running it. Huh. So let's switch it back to this one. This is the high DPI mode. So now that begs the question, what does this thing think it's connected to? Because it's not supposed to. All right, so I'm going to go back to the system report. But you see what you have to go through when you're testing this stuff, because I'm trying to anticipate every question that viewers might have. And one of the questions will undoubtedly be, what happens if, right? So if we plug in some device, what's going to happen when we plug that in, right? And so we got to figure those things out. So yeah, so right now, well, this is intriguing, everybody. Look at this. The reason why it is running at 60 hertz is that it thinks this cable is a Thunderbolt cable. It's not a Thunderbolt cable. So my world is being turned upside down at the moment. However, what it is telling me is the upstream is 20 gigabits per second times 1. So we're not getting the full 40. So now I am wondering if we plug that Thunderbolt cable back in, will it give us. See, it's going to be hard to trick this thing. I was hoping the USB-C cable would trick it into USB-C mode. As I mentioned, I don't have a USB 3.1 Gen 2 device to connect. All right, so now I've connected the dock again with the Thunderbolt 3 cable. And let's see what we get here after it comes back up. And I'll go back and check the chat here too and see what you all are chatting about. And I've got to head out in about 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, what's funny is that it's not even broken. It's working better. It's working better than I thought it would. It's not supposed to do what it's doing right now. So that is the question I have for this thing at the moment. Okay, so look at this. Okay, so let's go. Well, actually not yet. Let me reboot the system information here. I think it gets that system information thing each time the. Okay, so let's go back to Thunderbolt. And it's querying, and let's go down to the bus 1, and we'll go to the dock. Yeah, okay, so check this out. And I can do my little Mac Zoom thing here. 40 gigabits per second times 1. So when we plugged in the Thunderbolt cable, it gets the full bandwidth again. So there must be something going on inside the dock that's maybe it's within the controller where it's able to use what I know for a fact is this came with a USB-C dock that I have, a dock monitor thing. This is not a Thunderbolt cable, yet it was able to do essentially a half bandwidth Thunderbolt connection to the dock. It wasn't that new USB-C 20 thing. It was Thunderbolt at 20 gigabits per second. Now it is Thunderbolt at 40 with the cable connected. So this was the conundrum I'm in because I can't find a USB. I need to get a laptop that's got a Gen 2 port to really test out how it works with that. So we're probably not going to be able to do that because I was hoping I could trick it with the cable, but it was not trickable. So that's that. All right, that's cool. Let's try the iPad and see how that works. And we'll go from there. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Like it's doing things it shouldn't do. Now this is a new, so what's happening here is that Intel, I learned a little bit about this at CES. There's a new Intel controller that is enabling this device to do what it's doing. So that's how it's all working. All right, so now we got an iPad. And I'm going to switch you to my overhead view here. Now again, Thunderbolt 3 cable into the USB-C port on the iPad. And let's see if it works with that. I have a feeling it will. So it's charging, and actually it's showing display going out. And boom, look at that. Pretty cool. Let me zoom this out a little bit here. Isn't that cool? So we got our iPad working here. And this is through the dock. So right now I'm getting power in, video out, and let's see if the keyboard works. So let me go into my notes real quick. And I'm just going to start a new note. If I have one I could use here. Let me see if I can. I got so much stuff going on. Let me go to start a new note here. Okay, so all right, so let me switch back here so you can see that this is working. So I've got the keyboard. Now remember, iPads don't like mice. There is a way you can enable some mouse stuff on here, but keyboard works. So that's good. And the big question is, what about the Ethernet, right? So let's go and let me look at the network connections here. Paul says, Thunderbolt and Lightning, very, very frightening. Yes, it can be. Well, I'm just glad that nothing is like exploding by plugging all these cables into things that shouldn't work. So normally you would not. I may be mistaken. If anyone knows, let me know in the chat. But my understanding is that generally Thunderbolt 3 cables do not work as USB-C cables, but with this dock it does. So that's cool. Let me go over to my. Yeah, so I've got Ethernet. So that's working. So here, I'll show you. So to make sure. Oh, something just went bonkers on my video switcher here. Hang on a second. There we go. So if I go over to my screen here, you can see that I've got Ethernet through the dock. That is cool. Now, I don't have my other Chromebook, so it didn't work with the Asus Chromebook. So that. I'm just trying to see what else I can plug into this thing while I still have you all here. But that's pretty cool. All this is working. Pretty neat. See, this is what I look for, is like I look for things that are new and different. And you would never, in a million years, browsing online would realize that this thing is new and different. So it does seem to be working quite well, especially on the USB-C side of things, because typically you see a performance drop with that. Now what we could do, because we tested the Ethernet, what we could do, I'm just trying to think about, yeah, there's not much more I can think about here to test. Again, the big thing that we want to try out is DeX on Samsung, which I can't do right now because I have a million phones, but a Samsung DeX is not one of them. I wonder if I plug in my Pixel 4 here, what happens. So we need to figure that out. The other thing I need to figure out is getting the USB-C. I need to get a laptop with a USB-C Gen 2 connection to see what we can get for bandwidth back and forth. Now, Bay has a good question here that it's confusing. So he's wondering if I have an eGPU to test this with. This will not work with an eGPU, and the reason is that you don't get a daisy-chainable Thunderbolt port in the back. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm just going to disconnect all the stuff I have connected to it. So in the back here, let me zoom in the camera in so you can see. Actually, you can do the overhead real quick. In the back here, and I'll zoom in so you can see better. So it's hard because the printing is a little hard to reflect back off my lights here. Let me get that view. There you go. So these are both USB ports back here. Now, normally with a dock like this, you would have a Thunderbolt pass-through, which would let you plug the eGPU in. So this one's not going to work with that. So if you have a single Thunderbolt port on your computer, then you're not going to be able to use the eGPU with this. And that is a very good point to add to my list of things. Because those ports in the back don't magically become Thunderbolt ports. They remain as USB-C here. So that's all those are. But you do have the two video outputs. And offline, what I'll check is the 4K on Thunderbolt. I think it'll work fine. So that's that. I'm trying to figure out where the best place for this video is going to be. I'm probably going to put it on the main channel just because it's the only one that I could find at the moment that supports both standards. So you go in here to your computer to the host, and then we're finding that it's detecting things automatically. And it's just so odd how it works, because I need to make a note about that too. USB-C cable working as a Thunderbolt cable. Because this USB-C cable just like worked as a single lane Thunderbolt cable, which was totally weird. So that was cool. Yeah, so I think I have to do a little bit more with this tomorrow, because I also need to get a DeX compatible phone in. I'm going to try to get the firmware updated on my Samsung phone and see if I can get that to work. Yeah, let's plug this Pixel in and see what happens. One of the things with the Google Pixel phones is that they haven't supported video out. Although this one, let's see, I got to pop into the phone here. Keyboard works. Well, that's interesting. So on my phone here, the keyboard is working. That's pretty wild. I'm just going to type my password in real quick and jump into the phone. But I don't think these support display output, because I couldn't get that to work when I reviewed it. And Google apparently has been working on a desktop thing similar to DeX. I'm just trying to see if it has HDMI out here. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be supporting that still. But this is working with keyboard. I wonder if Ethernet works. Let's take a look. Network. Yeah, so it's not detecting an Ethernet connector, but the keyboard is working. So the USB hub is working and the power delivery is working with this. They want some. Can you do two monitors off the dock? Maybe use one of the USB-C. No, those USB-C connectors are data only. We can double check that just to make sure. But it looks like those are just data only. So I've got my, it's not the right one. I have a USB-C to Thunderbolt adapter in here. Or USB-C to DisplayPort, I'm sorry, USB-C to DisplayPort adapter here. So I'll plug it into one of those ports back there and see what happens. But I don't think it's going to work, because those two DisplayPort adapters are the only two that it works with. But let's see what happens here. So we'll plug in my iPad again, which we know worked before. And I've connected it to the adapter. And I'm not getting anything on screen. Yeah, we're just getting nada. But if I take it out and plug it into the video output here and just activate the iPad again. We're back. So, all right, let's try that one more time because the iPad did go to sleep. So just in fairness, to be thorough, just to make sure. Let's see if these, I think, so these really will be like pretty much data only. So the iPad's back up, and yeah, no video. So that is, that's what we got there. All right. Let's see what else we got here. So Matthew says, Thunderbolt goes down to 20 when it's a passive cable, high quality USB-C. Oh, okay. So you know what? I was mistaken when I thought that these cables were different, but it looks like that's not the case. So real 40 gigabit per second, this is Matthew in the chat. Real 40 gigabit per second cables are active and expensive and are the only way to get full speed, but a USB, it sounds like a USB-C cable that's passive will run at 20 with the Thunderbolt versus not. So I got no way to trick this thing into doing something better. Peter Mac 83 wants to know, what's my favorite home theater PC remote? Yeah, that Pepper Jobs remote, I have it somewhere in this mess down here. That one still remains my favorite. So that one's good, and their mini PC is great too. But they're out of stock at the moment. I think the coronavirus is having an impact on a lot of stuff. We're going to see a shortage of a lot of things due to the virus in China. I think they're going to be, it sounds like they're inching closer to getting back online in China, so I think we'll see things start to pick up again. But there's going to be I think you're going to see things cost more due to availability, especially parts availability. And I think we'll also, we'll see some limits of supply for a while too. All right, folks, well, I have to get going because I am on my school board, and we've got a budget meeting tonight at 6 o'clock, which is in just 40 minutes. And I need to like consume some kind of food, so I'm halfway competent to preside over that meeting. I'm the chairperson, so I have to go get ready for that. But I thank you all for tuning in, and I will be back. So tomorrow night, well, see, it depends. Night is relative, right, based on where you are. But tomorrow, my night, 8 p.m. tomorrow, I will be doing another live stream. What it is, I do not yet know. I think I'm probably going to do a cell phone extender that I got in a while ago and haven't tested yet. So I think we'll be playing around with that. So that's going to be tomorrow night's live stream right here, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, US. And you can run your queries to figure out where in the world or what time that will be in your corner of the world, because we got people from all over the place. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you and everything that you do. Yeah, cool stuff. So I'm going to probably shoot this review in the morning because it's on the desk already. And we'll get that one up. I think this might go on the extras channel just because there's some content here, but there's not a lot. Once you plug it in, it kind of works. So we'll figure it out. But it'll also be on my Amazon page too. All right, everybody. Good night for now. I'm going to go to my meeting and make sure our schools are adequately funded for another year. And I will be back again soon. So thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to end the Amazon stream. And my friend Mark, who we had on TV on our show the other day, he was watching on the Amazon side. So thanks for tuning in there. I'm going to end that stream, and I'm going to end the YouTube stream now too. Good night, everybody. Thank you once again, and I will be back tomorrow night, 8 p.m. right here. Bye-bye.